putting yourself in the shoes of other party is probably one of the best things that you can do for the whole project. Because you can have like outstanding product or you can be outstanding engineer, but if you're not gonna demo this work to no one, nobody's gonna actually know. So to be honest, being coached by someone who have spent hundreds of hours really mastering their arts and just transferring this knowledge to you is one of the top things that you can do for your career or for any field whatsoever.
Welcome to the Data and AI Talks podcast. My name is Vincent Spruit, and today with me I have a successful senior data engineer that I believe is on an even greater career trajectory and that I have the honor of coaching from time to time myself. Today is with me Filip Pastuszka. Do I pronounce that right, or I probably made a mistake?
Yeah, almost. Filip Pastuszka. That was pretty good.
Pastuszka.
Try.
Yeah, that sounds better. Hey, you started your data engineer career about 6 years ago with T-Mobile in Poland. And now you're working for Nike already for about 2 years. And I think you're really doing what you love. And you're probably earning a little bit over 12K per month. You don't have to confirm or deny, but I know. So when I checked out your LinkedIn, by the way, I see that it really breeds sport. So you work for Nike, but also your picture, you have a Nike shirt on, and also the background, I think was surfing or something. I know you as somebody who is hungry, like ambitious, and you're a hard worker with a clear goal. I think there's a lot of companies that would like to work with you, and they're going to be lining up for you. So what I want to do in this talk today is really pick your brain and see what made you get to where you are right now, and what can other data engineers maybe take away from it. So before we get into this interview, I just want to present you with some choices to get to know you a little bit. I'm gonna do an A/B choice. Well, you can only say one of the choices, and you don't get to elaborate on anything. You just have to say one of the two, and at the end of the questions, you can come back to one or two or whatever you want. So, first question: Netherlands or Poland?
Netherlands.
Morning or evening?
For sure, morning.
Creating a great data solution or doing a TED talk on data?
Creating a great data solutions.
A book or a movie?
A movie.
Azure or AWS?
That's a tough one. My heart still lies at AWS.
Okay.
But Azure is also great.
There we go. Always having to elaborate. So
Diplomatic. Yeah.
let's go to the last one. Apple or Microsoft?
Recently, Apple.
Okay, great. So do you want to elaborate on any of them?
Yeah, no. By the way, first of all, Vincent, thanks very much for the invite. I'm listening your podcast, the Data and AI Talks, and I very much enjoyed them. So it's a pleasure to be here. And also, thank you very much for this kind introduction. Elaborating on any of the questions, I think I hesitated a bit, AWS versus Azure, and the reason for that is when I started going into the cloud journey, so to speak. I've basically looked at which platform is the most used. And a few years ago, it turned out clearly that AWS is still the leader. And I also have had a look at Microsoft and sort of the way the documentation is structured and the way sort of the product is developed. From Amazon, it way more spoken to me. But as it turns out, in the Netherlands, Azure is way more popular. So even though sort of my heart lies and I've been mostly using AWS, now I'm also really trying to get more proficient with Azure, and I also have some experience there. So that was not very obvious answer.
I agree. I think in the US, AWS is more popular, right? Yeah, in Netherlands, I did a research
Indeed,
last year
yes.
among data engineers, about 100 of them, and we asked them, have you had any experience with either Azure or AWS? And it turned out that I think 80% of the data engineers in Netherlands have worked with Azure, and maybe 40 something percent has worked with AWS. Google was really at the bottom, like 16% or something. So yeah, but I did see them at the event, Google, that they were sponsoring it heavily, and like all these events that you go to now, Data and AI or World Data Summit or something. I think they really want to upgrade their presence in Netherlands. But enough about that. Hey, thank you for being here. If you look back at your career, are you proud of what you achieved so far?
Looking, it's very, very subjective, right? Because if you compare yourself to this really big names in the tech industry, right? Like where are you even standing compared to them? But when I actually look at my career, I think it's all very subjective, and personally, I'm very satisfied with where I am today. And there's been like quite a few pivots in my career. Like actually, as a teenager, I've always dreamt to be a bartender and also travel the world, and I was also able to do that. And a little bit later on, when I actually came back from my traveling years, I've really started missing this sort of education and like this really interesting technical problems. And this is where for the first time I was able to get my first junior data engineering job, and I had absolutely no clue what it comes with. But since my first sort of professional work at T-Mobile, this has been quite a journey with quite a lot of interesting stops, I would say, and it's been very interesting. And I am pretty happy how it turned out so far, and like I'm also very optimistic for the future.
Why did you choose to get into data after your bartender career?
So, when you work as a bartender, it's extremely fun job. You get to talk to quite a lot of people, but actually, after some time of doing that, you really you start craving this sort of a challenge for your mind. And back at the time, I finished my bachelor's in econometrics, and sort of data was all around
Uh-huh.
everyone's mouth, and people started seeing data as a new gold. And it was sort of natural career progression, sort of either to become data analyst or data engineer. And yeah, I finally managed to land a position at T-Mobile, and I couldn't be more lucky with my team and my managers. So, and I learned all my first SQL queries. I had no clue about it before even joining. So yeah, very consider myself very lucky.
As I speak with you more often, I see that you make very conscious decision about your career. Are there any specific moments throughout your career that you said, okay, now I need to go another direction, or this is a specific key point for me?
Absolutely, there were, I would say, definitely few critical points. I would say less in anyone's career. The first professional work in T-Mobile was definitely one of the most pivotal points, because not only I joined a team that taught me a lot, but also I was dating someone from T-Mobile. We actually knew each other from school. She was a product owner of a big data team at the time, and we always exchanged different. Um, we shared the project we were working on, and she was like definitely a huge boost in inspiring me towards also purchasing this career path, because she and her team, they were working on such a like interesting projects in big data domain, and still working on premise in Hadoop, but looking at the clickstream data, and doing some very interesting use cases there. And so that she definitely inspired me and showed me like a little bit of an insight of how the like big data team operates. And from that moment I was very sort of inspired to go into that domain even more. And later on, after moving to the Netherlands, I finished my master in econometrics, and I was also very glad that I was able to start working as a consultant for Accenture. And I also was working with like really experts basically in the domain, and also learning how the consulting scene works, and also really getting used to sort of going from one client to another on this kind of more short-term projects, but very intense. It was also definitely like a massive boost for my career, like a very intense time, but super interesting as well. And so after working for T-Mobile, for T-Mobile, then in Accenture for quite some time, I also got reached out to by a recruitment company, and they basically offered me that I could start also working as a freelancer. So basically, continuing work as a consultant, which I absolutely loved. But working at consulting companies, it's always feels like you do like a full time at your client, and also you have like half time position at your consultancy. And I love the consulting lifestyle, but I really felt like I would like to start working for myself more and building my own portfolio and my own brand. And I would say this was also like quite a pivotal moment for my career.
Yeah, so you would say that for a starting data engineer, it's very good to work in consultancy at the beginning?
I believe so. I think this is probably one of the best thing that one can do, because you really start to be surrounded by industry experts who are not only great from the technical standpoint of view, but they also know very well how to sell their work, sell their products, how to convince their clients and convince their stakeholders. So it's certainly a intense time or intense kind of work, but I highly recommend it, because that would definitely be great investment for your career.
Well, first of all, with consultancy, you see different environments. You learn to work with different tools, different software. But also, I think the communication aspect is probably more important than when you are working as an internal person, because you have to sell yourself each time again, and you actually have to do an interview every time you get to that new company, right? So I do think these are skills that we're asking more of all the technical people, and I do agree with you. And at some point, when you actually know what you like, because a lot of people, they just start somewhere and they only know that organization. But if you see different environments, you know, okay, this is what I do like and this is what I don't like. It's good for shaping your own future as well.
Absolutely.
I do want to also get to know you a little bit, and not just the work guy, but can you tell me how your morning routine looks like?
Oh wow. I I wouldn't necessarily say I have like very strict morning routine, but if I look at and sort of my morning routine also evolves over time. Sometimes I'm more productive, sometimes less.
Mm.
But
But you are a
I
morning
can
person,
definitely
as you said in the beginning.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely I am. And I would say there are probably like two constants in my almost every morning. First of all, it's very important for me to squeeze some exercise, ideally early in. So, even if I'm working from home, as much as like a stretch, few minutes stretch, or maybe 10-minute workout from YouTube, that would be already something. Ideally, I would maybe start my day with a gym, especially if I go right now at work at Nike. So going on campus is perfect opportunity actually to start moving in the morning. So that would be one aspect of my morning. A second would be just before I dive into the mundane tasks of the day, maybe responding to some emails or some messages. I always try to go through like a list of priorities for my day, like what I actually do I want to achieve, to slightly be more in the driver's seat instead of just diving into the work that seems like urgent, but maybe you would spend all your day being busy and not really being productive. So first of all, squeezing some exercise works great for me, and also starting my day with like a clear goal of what do I want to do today. That's the second one, and I think that's far as my morning structured morning routine goes.
Well, I think those are two absolute winners, because the exercise, I also do it, but the days that I exercise intensely, my brain just functions better. I am more sharp the whole day.
Absolutely,
Second one, if you prepare your day, you actually know these are the things that I want to finish, instead of just doing whatever comes at you. Otherwise, you're just in your email. You're basically doing
exactly.
low value tasks, and you don't get the things done at the end of the week that you do want to have done, or you will just do whatever everybody else is asking of you, instead of doing the things that are most important for you. So great tips, I would say. At Nike, so you start sometimes with sports. I believe they have a very good sports playground or something. What do they have there?
Yeah, so that would sound like advertisement, but I couldn't be more happy how the current campus looks like. So indeed, as you have noticed, Nike has quite a lot of different sport facilities in Hilversum in the headquarters. So we have a huge running track. We have a small football field as well. We have basketball field, tennis court as well, padel court, and last but not least, we also have a new Bill Bowerman building being open after over a year of being renovated. And this building also contains a new gym. And this is probably the best gym I've ever seen by a huge margin. And it's absolutely a one of the highlights of my morning. Actually, it's probably a highlight even of my day sometimes to go there and just have a beautiful session with weights in the morning. So,
Wow.
yeah, highly recommend visiting it.
We're not promoting Nike, but it is nice if you're a
We're not,
sports
yeah.
fan to work there. Okay, and you actually also do some work, right? How does your day look like as a data engineer at Nike?
Right. So, each day looks a little bit different, but I would say my work doesn't vary very much from like a typical data engineering day. And as a data engineer, you basically work consists around enabling data access to the right people, make sure that it's available. So a huge part of my work would be around writing applications, like a software to process data. So when it comes to writing this application, right, you usually have to write this code, but also ask someone to review this code or review code of your peers. Often also you need to talk to stakeholders to understand what are the requirements and what they actually need. Quite a big part of my time next to talking to stakeholders is also understanding the business domain itself, why do we do certain things. I think that's easy to miss, but very important. And other than that, talking to your colleagues, having meetings, designing software together with them, brainstorming. And as a last, a very important thing, I would mention also data quality and software tests. I've recently realized that a huge part of my time is actually testing software and making sure that the data and programs that we write are producing the results that we actually want. So I think it's also important to mention that.
Do you have certain ways to check quality of data? Is there templates or systems for it, or you have your own way?
Well, when it comes to data, it's, I would say it's hard to come up with like a specific templates because every pipeline is different. Every pipeline is joined different tables together. So there are some generic tests that you can run, for example, like checking the null values, or maybe you can like test the outcome of the table in a sort of structured way that is like basically ongoing. And every time it runs, you basically get the output. Um, but I would say every case is slightly bit different, and it's hard to think of like very sort of structured ways of doing that for now.
Hey, so what would be the next step for you in your career after you're long with Nike?
Right. So when I became working as a data engineer, I've been extremely passionate about like software and like learning all the frameworks and all the design principles and how to do code review and unit testing and so on. And I'm still like very, very much interested in that. But I think recently the aspect that has been very motivating for me is sort of more of a human aspect, I would say, and how the problems that we are able to solve are actually impacting uh, people and how it's making their life easier. So it is very exciting for me to understand that this processes or the certain organization complexity problems, and sort of act as a consultant more than a just a developer. So looking forward, I would definitely like more work more with that kind of problems, and next to like deepening my technical understanding, maybe focusing even more on that sort of business aspect of writing software.
Cool. So move closer to the business. And I see actually a lot of companies that are struggling right now. There's a gap between the business and technical data people. So there's just things getting lost, and I see a lot of high directors high up in the food chain that are now trying to look for these kind of people who have actually have a technical background but also speak the language of the business. So I think it's a great career move. So far, we have been having some coaching sessions as well. How does coaching benefit you, or how has it benefited you?
Yeah, I think that's I've also looked at the 2023 a few days ago, just to as a year in a whole, and I've done some exciting sessions with you, but also I also done some sessions with a life coach a few times, and also with fitness coach, and also kite surfing coach. And to be honest, being coached by someone who literally have spent hundreds of hours really mastering their arts, and just transferring this knowledge to you is a like probably one of the top things that you can do for your career or for any field whatsoever. Being able to be coached is probably one of the highlights of my year. And I also really like sessions with you. Well, we didn't really plan this, but I'm also like super grateful for all the sessions we had together, and it truly made put a spotlight on some maybe things that I didn't really were not aware of. And also me being, you know fairly new, I would say, on the sort of freelance market, it has been a tremendous boost for how I look at things, or to also understand how recruiters thinks at your profiles and how companies basically screen. So I couldn't recommend more to have a session with any coach. But if you're interested in a data engineering coach, like also where to look.
Good. Another question again, I think more from a data engineer perspective. What would you recommend data engineers to do? A, more of, and B, less of?
Okay, so perhaps maybe we can start with more. We already touched upon that, but well, all the data engineers got into the field because they are very passionate about writing code and solving these technical problems. But I feel where I could definitely improve, and I think probably most of engineers could improve there, is to really take a step back and try to understand the business problem as well, and to maybe also even connect with stakeholders and to try to ask the questions if you understand them correctly, because I've been totally blown away many times by assuming something and then talking to stakeholders, and it turns out that some features that I thought they're very useful, they're not, and some features that I thought they're marginal, they're actually one of the most critical to them.
Uh, and that's probably also
So
with your next career move. That's the gap probably they're talking about.
I really think so, and I think putting yourself in the shoes of other party is probably one of the best things that you can do for the whole project, and try to understand before you yeah, seek to understand before you want to be understood. So that, I would say, that's the one thing to do more. And second thing, and I'm definitely also someone who's working on that, as engineers we love technical solutions, but we are not always as good as we could to self promote and to sort of, quote unquote, is maybe a bit ugly to say it like this, but to sell yourself during like presentations or demos, because you can have like outstanding product or you can be outstanding engineer, but if you're not gonna demo this work to no one, nobody's gonna actually know. So it's definitely a huge lesson for myself, and I learned hard way to try to promote yourself and almost treat yourself like almost like a product or like a brand, you know.
Yeah, it's usually outside of the comfort zone of most technical people, I think. But I guess most people in general, like talking really, giving yourself compliments or talking great about yourself, it feels like wrong, but it's actually not. It's not. If it's true, you should promote it. Otherwise, it's not getting used, and that's even worse.
I believe so, right.
So, what should data engineers do less of?
Well, I would say, well, we already touched upon data quality, and I think we as a software engineers and data engineers, we should cut corners less, especially when it comes to data quality. I think when you write a code, it's pretty, because very often you write a code and maybe a colleague would review it, or at times I guess you are the only person actually that is looking at specific code. So I would be always keeping high personal standards, and especially when it comes to testing, because really doing a job well can save you like multiple times more hassle later on. So do not cut corners, especially when it comes to data quality. That would be my high recommendation.
Good, thank you. I think that's a good one. What development do you think we should keep our eyes on, that's going on right now in the data engineer market?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I remember when I started a few years ago, it was still very popular to use, for example, like Hadoop or this more legacy, consider legacy today. And I remember most of the data engineers I knew, they were actually using black screen. And at the beginning of my career, I also used command line quite a lot. And I think where the market is going right now, it's really making sort of this very complicated distributed processing way more accessible to people also without much of the experience, which is really great. And it's way simpler to actually to develop code. So that is where I see the biggest sort of changes, and that's where I think the market is going, to really abstracting this sort of complicated backend into very approachable, very simple front end that even people without deep understanding of technical concepts can use easily. For example, even I've recently were preparing for this Azure certification, and I learned about Azure Data Factory, and this literally enables you to write pretty, I would say, complicated pipelines by a few clicks without writing even a line of the code. So I think we can probably see it more and more in the future, even more abstracted, and complicated becomes simple.
Yeah, more low code solutions probably, where you don't have to write every,
Exactly. Yes.
you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. Great. Hey, one quick message for our listeners. If you are still here, that probably means that you like the conversation so far. I would ask you, please subscribe to our channel. That helps us a lot always. Thank you. Now, last question. And I keep asking this because I'm a reader myself and I was looking for new books. What would be your favorite book that you would recommend to people?
Oh wow, it's a tough pick. So my heart says one and my mind says one. So I'll just shout out for two of them. So first of all, I'll definitely recommend Atomic Habits by James Clear, and this is a classic. This book is extremely powerful and basically builds on the concept that making small changes in your day can produce a massive change in a scale of 1 year. So highly recommended. Other book is book called Essentialism by Craig McCown. And this book is simply about focusing more on a few small areas of your life and smaller amount of projects, instead of focusing on a wide range of projects but not really giving any solid focus to any of them and not really progressing with any of them.
Yeah.
So less means more. It would be a motto of that book. So very also inspiring. And
That's
yeah,
great.
it's
I
definitely
have
gonna
not
be
read
yeah,
the second one. I did read the first one, but the second one I will put on my list for this year. I will ask you to write it to me and I will share it in the description for the people who also want
absolutely.
to read it. I think that's very important. We always have too general focus, and if everything is important, basically nothing is important. You have to make choices, and that's also the thing that I really see you standing out with. You are not just doing the work and getting sucked up into the company and into the job. You are actually stopping and reflecting and looking, hey, am I on the right track? Where do I want to go? Is this what I'm doing right now leading me there? And these are important questions to ask. And yeah, I think that's probably one of yours, the reasons that you're so successful right now. Hey, thank
Well,
you
thank
so
you very
much for
much.
joining me. I love talking to you. I hope we were able to share, or that you were able to share some insights on the data engineering job and what to do and what not to do. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
No, I also had a really good time. So thank you very much for the invite, Vincent. And yeah, also sending greetings to all the listeners.